Hello everybody and welcome to Dungeons & Drams. We're going to be doing episode 2 here on creating a fantasy town using AI. So you might be shying away a little bit from AI, especially if you're new to the channel. Something I want to just go into here for a minute is I've always believed that AI needs to be a tool to help you be creative. I don't want it to do all the work for you. I mean, if you want that, then that's up to you. But, you know, I see a lot of people kind of tune into this channel and then run away because they're not into the idea of AI, and I totally get that. So what I want to promote here is to utilize AI to help you get past those writing blocks or the sticking points, or just to help you ideate. And that's what I'm trying to do here. So you'll see our map here. We have a few points of interest. We have the Elder Tree Ruins, Skyfall Plateau, the Rolling Plains. I've changed some of the background of the ground just to look a little cooler. But in general, this is the same layout that we had in the previous episode. So now we're going to talk a little bit about what structures and what other points of interest would be in the actual town. So let's go over to ChatGPT and kind of figure all that out. And then we're going to go to Inkarnate and we're going to add it to our map. We're going to add on. And we're going to talk about things, make sure that they make sense where they go. Because it's not just the idea, it also has to have a flow. So let's go into ChatGPT. The first thing that I want to do is start off with a prompt that's going to help us to determine which buildings would even be in this town. But also, we want to name the town something, even if it's just a placeholder, and I believe it probably will be a placeholder. However, I'm going to thank Lonely Person 1233 for helping to give me a name. I asked you guys in the last episode for some ideas and a name and whatever. So they suggested the name Shockram, Shockram. Now, I don't know what this is going to mean here. I looked this up. It appears to be something maybe from 40K or somewhere else, but that's totally fine. Either way, we're going to go with this at least as the test name of this town. So the town of Shockram. We'll go with Shockram. I think that has a little bit better flow. Now, Lonely Person specifically said that he thought that it could have something to do with the sound of the howling wind coming down from the Whistling Hills, I believe we called it. The Whispering Hills, sorry. Super easy. I'm going to name the town Shockram. Not a big surprise. It's just like, yeah, good job. You named a town. All right, cool. I think our next prompt needs to be something to ask which buildings it thinks we need to have, but I know what it's going to require, or at least I think I know. How many people currently live in this town? So I'm going to go over here to Inkarnate for a moment. We're going to just look at our town, or the area of land. Now, there's a lot of space over here. There's plenty of room for agriculture. We have plenty of lumber. We have water. We really could have a decent-sized town, maybe even a small city here. And I think that's fine. But something that I want to try to do here, I want to try to grow this city over the course of a couple of these videos. So we're definitely going to start off. I'm not going to go as small as a village, but I am going to go in a future video a little bit about the history of this place once we've built it. So let's aim for the concept of a town. I want to have maybe 1,000 people here. I think that's about right. How many families? That'd be a couple hundred families. I think that's totally reasonable. So we're going to go with 1,000 people, and we're going to tell ChatGPT that's the size of our town. So I went a little bit more detail with this than I probably had to, but trust me on this, I'm going somewhere. So I'm going to say the size of Shockram is 1,000 people. Now, I did go and double check against the DMG just to go see what they thought a size of a town was. Now, this basically qualifies for a medium-sized town, which perfect. This would be approximately 200 families and many workers who are either residents or travelers that choose to stay for an extended period of time. Now, the reason that I specified that is I want it to have the concept that there are people traveling to this town. So that's going to help to dictate some of the buildings that we may need. Obviously, we'll need an inn. We'll need places for them to eat. We'll need maybe jobs that make sense for people who are staying for a couple of months. We'll need places for them to shop. We'll need all kinds of stuff, maybe weapons, maybe there's going to be quests that involve, travelers or adventurers, right? So all of these things is by that one little sentence of travelers may visit this town. So let's go ahead and put this in here. Oh, this is interesting, and usually I don't like when it does this, but I'm going to take it this time because I think it's useful. So it's already starting to write an outline of the overview of the town. In this case, it says the population, 1,000 people, approximately 200 families, workers or residents and travelers staying for an extended period. So great, it already kind of formatted that in a way that makes sense to me. But it started to kind of list out some of the town features, and I don't love that. I will actually despite the fact that I like to see it because it can give me an idea, the next thing I tell it is that I want it to get rid of all of the town features. I don't want it to have any assumptions yet. But it does say that we're going to need a central market, residential districts, inns and taverns, craftsmen and workshops, temples and shrines, guard barracks, farms and gardens, education and learning, trade routes and roads, and points of interest. And it does specifically mention some of the points of interest outside of the town that we talked about. I'm going to tell it to forget all of that. I'm actually going to be a little harsh here because I want to make sure that it doesn't do this. And I'm hoping to train this thread to not make assumptions. I do not want you to assume any aspects of this town until I ask for it. The town features area should be forgotten until I ask for that detail. Excellent. So it listened, which is great. I mean, I don't need it to make assumptions for me. I'm trying to be creative and then have it help me. Hopefully it keeps this in mind. Now, something else that came up is that Lonely Person and another person named NT Spang, they suggested a few things. So there were some buildings that they thought belonged in here, and I think that's wonderful. That's exactly what I was hoping for. So a couple that stuck out to me were mine shafts, gemstone shops, a prison or jail, which maybe for a small town or a medium town like this would probably make sense to have some form of a jail, although probably not huge. An herb or a plant shop, which would make sense if people are traveling through here, they might need medicine. Hunters Union, watchtowers, and NT Spang asked what kind of fish are in the river and are they edible, which I love that concept. So we're definitely going to explore that. All right, so let's go ahead and just ask, let's say what kind of buildings would be the first buildings to be built in this town. While this is typing out, I want to remind everybody that I have a Patreon. I see a lot more of you have joined on the free tier, which is awesome. I'm glad you've chosen to check it out. But, you know, consider supporting the channel. All right, so housing, of course, makes sense. We're going to need some houses, and we'll definitely cover that. Basic homes for the settlers, likely simple structures to provide immediate shelter. There's a community hall, which makes sense. Storage and granary, wells, temporary shelter or inn. You know, it's funny, I would have forgotten to do wells right off the bat because in my mind I would have been like, oh, they're right next to a river, but that doesn't provide the same thing. So very good that I put that. Temporary shelter or inn. Okay. Blacksmith workshop, farm structures, and trade post or market stall. Okay, so I'm actually going to go to Inkarnate with this list of buildings and things, and let's see where we think that they would go. So now we're back in Inkarnate. We are looking at our map here and we have everything that we remember. So the first thing that I think we need to decide is, where did the settlers come from? Did they come from the Skyfall Plateau and maybe up from the north here? I'm kind of leaning towards yes. Did they come from the Whispering Hills? Most likely not, because as we kind of talked about, this area is swarming with stone giants. So I'm thinking that they probably didn't travel through the Whispering Hills. Now they could have come up from the south, which would make some sense if you just think about the way that, you know, the world has been. Chances are, if this is a typical planet, the equator would be probably more hospitable, and maybe they would come from the south. But I want them to come from the north. So here's what I'm going to do. We're going to actually do this kind of in real time, if you want to think of it this way. So I have my path color here, and we're basically just going to make kind of a meandering path. Actually, not there. We're going to make a path that kind of hugs near the Skyfall Plateau. Because maybe they want this area for protection as they were kind of making their initial trek down to this area. Now I am going to have the major area kind of be all in here. This is where they're mostly going to settle. So we're going to target that area. Now they're like looking around. They're like, oh, look at this. There's this beautiful river over here and this huge grassland, and this looks like a great place to settle down. So they kind of make a beeline for the river, and maybe they set up camp here for a little while. Eventually they end up going to this lake, which now we have a road. Now we have our main camp that would have been in this rough area, and then they would have trekked out to the main lake. They would have found this, or possibly they would have stuck near the shoreline. But let's just go with this for now. And then maybe they would have eventually, just occasionally, they would have crossed this river to go check out the forest. They would have also probably crossed this river to check out these rolling plains over here. And we do know that there's going to be some agriculture in this area, so this makes sense. And then there probably would have been some exploration while they're searching for wells. And I think those will be our main roads to start off with, at least just to start off with. We'll expand out from there. Now, we could also, yeah, you know what? Like I said, we'll start from there. All right. So the first thing that they're going to need is they're going to need some houses. So we need to pick a fantasy style, and there's lots. There's abandoned, which is not what we're going for. Babylonian, desert, dwarves. I'm going to say, I think we had decided that this was generally a civilization of humans or maybe elves. I kind of forget. I'm not going to go for elves only because I think that there are a lot more houses that make sense for humans. But this is totally because I'm using the tool. So we're going to go with Fantasy Regional HD. And that's going to give us access to all of these buildings, which is awesome. Yeah, there's tons of stuff here. And also there's going to be some, probably, I think some more. Yeah, the Viking settlement, I could potentially use some of these, but we're going to just stick with this. So to start off with, we're going to start with these thatch roofed houses because these are villages, right? Or, just kind of thinking about it. I don't want to redo this twice. So we're going to assume that, they kind of built these things up. We're going to go with this second set of houses that has, wooden roofs. It has decent walls. It's not just made out of hay. So we're going to start there. Okay. So human townhouse. We just kind of pick whatever we like. Let's go for something kind of small. We'll go with this set of human houses. So we've got a house here. Obviously this is way too big. So we're going to zoom way in and we're going to shrink this down. Now they made this initial settlement here, which could be where the the community hall ends up being. But let's just say that they built some houses, and we're gonna switch this around. There's a house here. There's a house here. There's a few houses around. We don't have to get too crazy, because the whole point is just to make it appear that there are lots of families living around. But they're going to be nestled together pretty tight. You also don't have to be too crazy. Each one of these houses could represent 5, 10 houses, whatever you'd like. But the important thing will be your, let's say that this building right here, which, we're going to make it just a little bit bigger, and we're going to put that, we're actually going to move this. Let's move this one over here. Like this. This is going to be kind of a crossroads, so this is going to be an important area. I'm going to put the community house just off of the crossroads. Because although it would be important to get there, it doesn't need to be, kind of the prime area of real estate that, say, a blacksmith might need, or like a stable or something like that. So we've moved a few things around here. I'm not going to aim for perfection because we care a lot more about the concept. So this one's going to be our community hall, and obviously not going to be nearly that large. All right, there's our community hall. Cool. So we have that. And now we need to have, so we've got some housing. We have our community hall. We need storage and granary. So let's see if we have anything along that line. Let's see, grain. That's not how you spell grain. All right, so let's go farm. Okay, whoops. We do not have anything like a granary, but that's okay. Let's see what we do have. Okay, so we don't have anything like a granary, but what we do have here is storage. So I can have some storage. But where do we need to have our storage? Well, our storage would make the most sense if it was out near where we're doing some agriculture, which we don't have quite yet, but we're about to build. So we're going to have some storage there. I'm actually going to grab this again, and I'm going to remove the random stamps because we're going to have a couple things of storage way out here. And we are human, so we're the jerks. We're going to come along. We're going to rip out all these flowers, which is probably going to, make some sort of fey creature mad at us, but who cares? Maybe just some creature will be upset. We are going to go for a farm, which get rid of the houses tag. And now we have, that's cool. Let's go grain or crop. Okay, crop works. All right, so we're going to grow a couple things here. Because I am Dungeons and Drams, we're going to say we're growing some barley so we can make some whiskey. And we're going to have our crops way over here. Now, I'm not going to care too much about, what matter of way that crops grow. If I were making this for real, that's the kind of thing I'd dig into. I'd be like, oh, what kind of layout do crops have when you're growing them? And specifically barley, etc., etc. So we're just going to assume that this represents a huge farm. Enough food to keep everybody over here fed in grain. And of course, we're going to need some sort of path leading off of the main road over to the house. So that's just a little bit too small. Let's go for like a 7. Yeah, let's go for a 7. All right, so we've got a path going into the granaries. We've got kind of going all throughout the farm because obviously people are working the farm. And also making it a different color just kind of helps set it off from everything else, which is good. You definitely want to do that on your maps. And there we go. That's basically all we need to do. Okay, cool. So we've got a map. Drawing around all these things. That's perfect. All right, so now we need a farm out here, though. We don't want just storage and granary. We want an actual farm. Farmhouse, sorry. So I'm going to grab, let's see, this says farm. That sounds good. This is going to be a farm, and that farm's going to need a name. So I'm going to make a note that we need to name our farm. Growing barley. Basically, I'm taking notes of things that I'm deciding while I am creating. That way I can add it to our AI, and it doesn't need to make those decisions for me. I can just do it myself. Community Hall should probably have a cool name. Cool name for that. And maybe that's going to be something that's steeped in history, so we could kind of get into that too. Okay, so right now we need some wells. Maybe we even want to do... You guys are going to like this. All right, so let's do some irrigation from our river. We have dug this ourselves, and I don't like the way... There we go. We've dug this ourselves so that we can have some river irrigation. And I can't make it any smaller than that, unfortunately. At least I don't think so. No, not like that. Okay, that's fine. We have some river. We have some irrigation. And I'm going to give it some dirt kind of color around here. Just so that it's clear that it's maybe not as natural as saying like having the sand. I don't like that though. I want to make the opacity a little lower so that it looks dirtier. There we go. Cool. This looks great. All right, looking good. All right, so that is carved out of the river, and I'm actually going to even do a little bit more. We're gonna cut it from here instead, because then it looks more like you carved along the natural path of the river and, you know, potentially made use of whatever elevation change it's coming from the woods up here. Now, something else that was kind of bugging me when I was originally doing this is I don't like that the river just stopped. I think it's going to go off the screen, off the map. Okay, so we've got our irrigation. We have some houses. We have our farming area. I mean, our tree area. So these are all oak trees. We're going to need a lumber mill of some sort. Lumber. So we've got a mill here. So now we've got another little area of commerce, or not commerce, but, you know, resource gathering. Down here we've got a lumber mill, and let's just, for the heck of it, these don't quite fit in with everything else, but they certainly will look good if we put a bunch of them over here, because now we've got a bunch of logs, and we can even stack those if we want to. And do this just like anything else. You hit, you know, Control up, and it will increase its layer. And now you can do things on top of other things. There we go. Got a big old pile of logs. It looks a little silly, but whatever. It is what it is. But people are going to also potentially need a house or two down here. We don't want to have all the houses because that's where they work. So they're not going to necessarily live over there. But, you know, sometimes there's storms, sometimes there's problems, and people would need to stay. So there's going to be a nice house over here. And actually, you know what I'm even going to do? This is going to be just because I kind of want to. I'm going to grab one of these hills, and I'm going to put one of these hills here. And I'm going to make it just a little smaller. But the... stop it. The farmhouse is going to be on top of the hill, so that they can kind of oversee. Because not only are they going to be clear cutting here, but they got to keep an eye on the stone giants, right? So they want to have a little bit of a vantage point. But it does look a little weird to have that one hill down there. So we're going to extend the hills just a little out away from this area. So it doesn't look quite so out of nowhere, you know? And I believe that this is what we used for here. Yep, it is. All right, cool. We blend that just a little bit more. Excellent. That's looking great. Okay, I think that we probably need a little bit more in the way of lumber here. But let's actually, I have an idea. Just to give the impression of cutting, let's see, is there any trees that are kind of tilted over? Now, this one looks... That looks like maybe somebody chopped off a limb, but I don't think that's quite what we want. I'll just leave that one there. I like it. All right, so we need to have a little bit of a road here as well, because you're going to want to potentially get up to your house. We'll increase the opacity or decrease the opacity, but I think all of that looks fine, and we'll just have to use our imagination. But this is the lumber mill. Lumber mill. Now the lumber mill is going to need its own name. It's going to need you know, a story, all these things, but that's totally fine. We can figure that out. This is the lumber mill. Sometimes the names are hard to put places without making it look lame. I think the problem is that it's not big enough. Whoops. Okay, we can just do this. Perfect. Okay, that looks better. Okay, so what else do we need? So we have our housing, we have our community hall, we have our storage and granary, which is over here. We have some wells. Maybe we need more, maybe we don't. We probably need one over near the lumber mill because, you know, people got to drink. Okay. Temporary shelter or inn. So we don't really have an inn yet. So let's go for an inn. Okay, so we've got some fantasy inns here. Which one looks the best? That one's kind of crazy. Let's go with this guy. I kind of like this. This is going to be a prevalent part of the downtown crossing. But we're going to put this maybe more like here, because I think we're going to start expanding out. And I think that they would probably rather build... Let's switch this around. We're not really making use of this area inside of the road. So let's grab some more houses, just to make everything feel a little bit more full. These people paid a premium to live, you know, kind of near the water. Actually, you know what? I don't want to put too many houses near the water because that doesn't make sense. Like in a town like this, you are not necessarily going to be getting prime real estate. You're going to want to use the river for things like fishing, things like, you know, commerce, whatever. Okay, so we've got some more houses. Our little town's starting to shape up. Oh, something that's very important, by the way. So we've got our text tool. We're going to write shock ram. And we're going to make that a lot bigger. Boom, 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 boom. We're going to put that over here. Maybe a little smaller. And you can do this. You can do banner. And there's a bunch of different kinds. So you can kind of increase this up to a size that makes sense. Put that behind it. And now we have the town of Chakram. Whoops. And we want to grab both of these. There we go. Now we can move them as a piece. And we've got our town of Chakram. Which, I don't know where we want to put this. I don't know. Maybe like, I don't want to put it right in the middle. We'll just put it, we'll put it down here. That's fine. So now, oh, you can't even see that. Sorry about that. So we're going to have it down there. This is our town of Chakram. Okay. A couple more things, and then we'll get back to ChatGPT where we can start working on some other pieces that aren't quite so obvious. All right, so we've got our inn. Now this is our inn. I'm just going to write the word inn. We're going to name the inn later because an inn has to have a cool name. It's like pretty much it's standards, right? All right, so the inn needs a cool name. Okay. All right. So now we need a blacksmith, or an armorer or something like that. So while I was looking for the smithy, I actually found a water wheel, and I love that for this. So I'm going to actually grab that. I'm going to put that over here on the water, and I don't know what we're going to do with that yet, but that's definitely there. Oh, there it is. Okay. That's because it was listed as a farm. Super intuitive. Okay, so we've got our smithy here, and I'm actually going to put the smithy right on the road. I'm actually also going to put this next to a stable. which I'm going to throw right there for a second. I'm going to move these houses. These people are being evicted. What's it called? Eminent domain. So we're going to have our farm. Sorry, not farm. Our stable. I don't love that. I'm going to put the stable here, and I'm going to put the smithy kind of like near it, I guess. Behind it, near it. But we're also going to have a little bit more rough terrain here where people might go. And even in here, I don't love that there's grass. I want it to have been trampled. And we are going to see if there's an actual stable. You know what? This lumber mill here is going to serve as a stable as well. It kind of looks like there's an area underneath it, but that's totally fine, especially if we mark it as such. Nobody's really going to judge us on somebody else's icons and what they are. So stables. And then also smithy. Now we can decide what that smithy looks like later. You know, what do they sell? All this stuff. We're going to figure all of that out. In case you can't tell, this is going to be a bit of a long video. But hopefully you guys are enjoying this. Oh, we still need a trading, like a kind of a community area for commerce. So I like this one here. I feel like maybe down here will be an area that has a market. And we'll grab a couple more of these little markety areas. Oh, geez, that doesn't look... All right, it's not going to be upside down. All right, so we're going to do way smaller. We're going to do 1, 2... Oh, this is perfect. We'll just have a few of these. All kinds of stuff for sale down here. And we're going to also do a dock, because that was something that that lonely person put in there, and I loved the idea. Okay, so we're going to have a wooden dock down here. And we're going to zoom way in. And this dock is going to be there. And it's going to be there. And there's going to be, it's going to go out so that, you know, people can get their boat up to it. And this is going to be kind of an unloading area. We're also going to take a moment to just kind of grab some wood. Nope. That makes sense because it's kind of fantasy regional. I guess it's not going to be covered in wood over here. It's just going to be more heavily trod upon. And we're going to change the color here so that many, many people have walked through this area for sure. Maybe less so this guy. Poor guy. All right. And then this is another stall. This whole general area is a market. And there's going to be kind of like a fish thing going on. Fish thing. Yes. They sell fish here. That looks kind of gross, but whatever. I'm going to keep it at this point. I've spent a lot of time here. All right. So this is the market. Now, one thing I like about doing this is that as you're kind of thinking this stuff out loud, or even just to yourself, everything makes sense where it ended up. This little group of houses here, this is left over from when they initially settled. Maybe these are older houses. Let's even just switch them around a little bit and there we go. Move these just a tad. You definitely want to check at the end to make sure things aren't overlapping, but that's nothing that I have to worry about right this minute. Okay, cool. So some of the more interesting things, and I think I'll just kind of keep going just for another minute or two here. Let's think about mine shafts, right? So there's definitely going to be a mine. It doesn't have to be a dwarven mine. Let's go cave. There we go. Okay, so a cave. There's definitely going to be a cave going into the Skyfall Plateau. Like 100% there is. Let's make it a big cave. That's like a huge cave. Is that yeah, I mean, that is a huge cave for sure. But I would also probably make that big like that, or maybe like that, just so it definitely gets the player's attention, because I'm sure there's going to be stuff there. And also, they're going to be somewhat close to the smithy, because the smithy can do stuff with whatever they get from there. It bugs me that there's nothing in the middle of this water. I actually am going to change this just a tad. Is going to have a little island in the middle of it. And you know where that's going to lead to? I don't know. I'm not sure where that's going to lead to yet. But I bet it'll be cool and probably make for a decent adventure. We are going to give that a little bit different tone and probably put some... Let's do something weird, like a tower. But like not a watchtower. This is going to be an abandoned guard tower. Yeah, Let's make that a little bigger so it definitely draws some attention. So we've got a random thing down here. And I don't really like that. It doesn't look like anything. It's too small. Let's go back down to our Fantasy Regional HD. Small tower, stone bastion, evil tower. There's an evil tower in the middle of the lake, because why wouldn't there be? And you know what's there? I don't know. You're going to find out, though. I'm sure of it. And we're actually going to... I'm going to go crazy here. We're going to go for rock. I don't want mountains. I want... Ooh, I could make use of this crystal, and then I can change the color of it. Hold on, let's find out. Or maybe I won't even change the color. Maybe this will just be weird. I kind of like weird stuff. All right, so let's get rid of the brightness. Nope, we want to get rid of the contrast because we want to make this kind of gray, like rock gray, right? So there we go. That looks better. Now, what I can do here is these little gems are going to be floating all around. That's too many. They're going to be floating around, and you're going to be wondering what the heck that is. And, you know, maybe you figure it out. Maybe this used to be the tower of somebody who, you know, some evil mage. But, yeah, we'll figure that out later. Okay. I need to stop getting carried away here. I don't know where this path is going to go, but we'll figure that out later. Last thing I'm going to add, and then we'll get back to ChatGPT. Okay. This one's made out of wood. That's okay. So we're going to have a watchtower here, probably here, here. It's going to be one near the agriculture. There's definitely going to be one on top of this hill. Whoops. Along with the lumber mill, which of course now that gets in the way of my wording. That's okay. We'll put it there. And then I like that. I think that's pretty good for the moment. This isn't a very heavily fortified area, but they've now got a mine, which you know we're going to give that a good name. Okay, we have a dark tower. We'll just call it that. Nice. Oh, there's one more thing I want to do. So we're going to have... This is something I actually had in my world that I never got to use, so we're definitely going to do it. All right, so I have this thing. This is meant to look like lava, but I'm not going to make it look like lava. I am going to make this a corruption that is kind of coming away from the dark tower. Now I'm going to make this smaller so it doesn't look ridiculous, but you're going to see this in the land kind of surrounding the tower. And if I go to the background, I believe I can put this in the water too. Yeah, perfect. Oh, that's so good. All right. And then, of course, just a little bit on the island too, just so it doesn't look out of place. I like this a lot. I do think I'm going to back up just a little bit. I'm going to make the background one lighter so it does look like it's under the water. It's more of a hint of it. And then when we get back to the foreground, it's going to be bright again. Boom. Awesome. Oh, that's so good. Okay, cool. That dark tower is doing some stuff. All right, we're going to save this. We're going to go over to ChatGPT. So I've just let it know what I've decided to put on the map, which is housing, community hall, storage, wells, inn, blacksmith, farm that grows barley and wheat because they have to have bread, lumber mill, plus you can make beer, or maybe a wheated bourbon. Lumber mill, market, stables, mine, and an ominous tower. I didn't call it Dark Tower because I actually want it to come up with a name eventually. So this is interesting. It's actually asking me some questions. What is the history or purpose of the tower? Is it inhabited, abandoned, or a site of magical significance? So it's definitely going to be magical significance, but I'm going to save that for the end. Mine, what resources are being extracted from the mine? Community hall, what activities and events are held here? Market, what types of goods are typically traded here? And stables. Okay, so the first thing that I need to come up with is... let's start at the community hall. All right, so what questions do we care about with the community hall? We want to find out if, first off, you know what? Let's even back up a little bit more. We're in a medium-sized town. What does the political situation look like? Like, is it a town leader? Is it somebody who's elected? Is it somebody who just governs because they've been elected from a nearby city? What is the governance look like? What does the governance look like? And I'm going to ask for some options. What are some options for the governance in a town like Chakram? You could have a council of elders, a mayor and town council, guild leadership. I don't really want to do that one in this one, but I like it. Hereditary lordship, theocratic rule, militia or martial rule, direct democracy, a merchant oligarchy. Here's what I like. I like the fact that a group of pioneers set out and founded this village of Chakram. So I am actually going to have this be a direct democracy. I'm going to have it so that people have to vote on things. I'm going to have I'm going to say that there's 3 people who are elected as kind of like a checks and balances. So that way they always have a way to break a tie in a decision. You have 3 not even elders, but just 3 leaders. So let me tell it about that. I want the governance of this town to be 3 leaders elected by the people every 2 years. Most leaders stay on for 10 years before being asked to leave, but on occasion they are replaced. Now, I liked this part. Make a note that as a part of the history of this town, I would like some historical scandal and names of people who were voted out and the repercussions of that. Now, I told it to make a note in hopes that it won't just do that now. And it did update its memory, so that's good. Hopefully it doesn't list out anything. Perfect. All right, the governance of Chakram is composed of 3 elected leaders with a typical tenure of 10 years, though occasionally replaced due to scandal or other reasons. If you need specific details on the historical events, the names involved, or their consequences, feel free to ask, and we can flesh out those aspects of the town's history. Perfect. Okay, now I will say, the way that I'm doing this right now is a little bit slower than I would probably do if I was doing this myself. Obviously, I have some ideas, or maybe I don't, but I would just probably ask targeted questions as I'm thinking about them. I'm trying to have this be somewhat structured, because it's a video. But whatever, do this however you feel like you want to. Part of the reason I'm also doing it this way is I find that ChatGPT, although we are in 4.0 now, or 4.0, I've found that ChatGPT does better if you give it some linear thought, kind of direction. So consider that. I start from the beginning and I work towards the end. All right. So we now know what the government looks like. So let's find out what guilds would operate in a town like this. Or actually, let's talk a little bit about the fish thing, because I liked what NT Spang said, and because he bothered to comment, I definitely want to include it. So what kind of fish are in the river? Are they edible? So there's 5 different types of fish. We have the silverfin trout, a common and popular fish known for its silvery scales that shimmer in the light, giving the river its name. It's highly edible and delicious, often smoked or grilled. Silver trout fish is a staple in the local diet and a favorite at the market. We have moonfish, which are nocturnal fish that glow faintly in the dark, feeding on small insects and plant matter. Cool, I like that it's not just being normal fish. This is good. Edible with a unique, slightly sweet flavor. It's often cooked in stews or baked with herbs. We have river pike, larger predatory fish with sharp teeth and a sleek muscular body. Glittering perch, a small colorful fish with iridescent scales. And gold scale carp, a medium-sized fish with golden scales found in slower moving parts of the river. It's edible and versatile while cooking, suitable for grilling, bacon, blah, blah, blah. The gold scale carp is valued for both its flavor and its beautiful appearance. So I like this, but I want more magic. Could you include 3 more fish that are magical in some way? Now, this is an area that you could explore to your heart's content, but for the sake of the video, I'll just take the first 3 it gave me. So there's the aether fish, which is a translucent fish, and basically consuming it grants you temporary invisibility, but I do like this. There's no telling how long it will last, and the invisibility sometimes will flicker on and off. So that could be a lot of fun, but also kind of like a lot of fun for an intro adventure for low levels, go get one of these fish and it might help you out with your invisibility. All right, roll the dice to see if it stays on. If you roll a 5 or below, you flicker. And whether somebody sees you or not depends on where you are. Something like that. That could be very cool. And we could actually ask for the rules around that if we wanted to, and we certainly could, but probably won't bother for this just because you get the concept. Mirage eel is something that allows you to brew potions that grant the ability to create minor illusions for a short period. So alchemists or illusionists need to help you to create that. So we're going to want to put probably an herb place, like an herbery or a plant shop. I don't know if herbery is what you would call it. Probably not. Herbalist shop. Let's go herbalist. Okay. It's kind of late here, so forgive the brain. All right. Celestial koi. A beautifully patterned koi fish with starlight spots along its scales is often seen swimming in pairs or small schools, creating a mesmerizing pattern in the water. I'll give you a guess what this does. It's known to enhance meditation and grant visions of the future when observed in a calm state. Its scales can be used to craft amulets that protect against nightmares and enhance prophetic dreams. Well, that has a bit of adventure kind of written to it, so I like that as a concept. And it did say whether any of these are edible or not. One more thing I'd like to do. So I'm just in my personal life, like I've been a scuba diver most of my life, and so I love fish. And so the concept of just fun, like crustaceans could be interesting. So I'm gonna go, let's go a little fun, right? We're in a town, we're creating a town, and although I would probably save this more for the NPC episode I'm gonna do likely next, I'm gonna do one thing just for me. Watch the train of thought here. I would like to create 2 species of crustacean that live in this river. Okay, so the first one is gonna be the luminous crayfish, medium-sized crayfish, bioluminescent, blah, 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 behavior, magical properties. The glow of the luminous crayfish is not just for show, it has mild restorative properties, cool. And then the iron claw crab. Now it's adding magical properties to all of these, so that's something that I would have to tell it not to do if I wanted to, but in this case it actually works. The shells of iron crab claws are highly sought after by blacksmiths and enchanters. When properly treated, the shells can be used to forge lightweight, durable armor to enhance the strength of existing weapons and armor for magical durability. So now we're going to have a big crayfish. I want there to be a story about a huge luminous crayfish that lives in the Silver Lake River. Sometimes fishermen will have their lines snapped and always blame the luminous crayfish. Give the giant crayfish a name and a stat block at CR4. Describe its lair. It should have lair actions and legendary resistance. The name's not as creative as it could be, but you could always ask for more. But this is Lumos, the giant luminous crayfish. It's a legendary giant crayfish that inhabits the depths of the Silver Lake River, known for its immense size and the ethereal blue glow it emits. Lumos has become the stuff of local legend. Fishermen often tell tales of the creature snapping their lines, attributing lost catches and broken equipment to this mighty crustacean. That feels super small town near a river in this time period that D&D is usually played on. I love it. And of course, you could absolutely have these be some rumors that catch your players' attention. If they want to go hunt it, certainly can. Its lair is a secluded cavern beneath the riverbed, of course, accessible through a series of submerged tunnels. Perfect. The lair is illuminated by the bioluminescent glow of smaller luminous crayfish and various glowing fungi. Creating an otherworldly underwater landscape, the lair is filled with sunken treasures, old fishing nets, and remnants of boats that have ventured too close to the legendary creature. Awesome. Treasure. Its stat block, I won't go too much in this. You could pause and look at it if you want, but it's pretty beefy. It's got a lot of strength, as you would expect. Pretty dumb, not very charismatic. It's got resistance to cold, which you would expect. Dark vision, sure. CR4. It's legendary resistance. Okay, cool. It glows. It's got multi-tack, claw, tail swipe, and some layer actions, which basically control... the choking algae is cool. Algae and plant life in the water around Lumos grow rapidly, creating a 20-foot radius area of difficult terrain centered on a point Lumos can see within 60 feet. Now, what I like about this is having, although it sounds like it's in an underwater cavern, you could either have that completely full of water, which would make sense, or you could have it kind of like pools of water and maybe there's some dry land. It depends on whether you want to do a 3D fight or not. So that could be very cool. And I actually love this, and I don't really think I would change too much about this. I'm going to give this a new prompt that I haven't tried before, specifically the part about being cliche. I need names for several of the local buildings. It would be best if the names would be clever if it's a business, paying homage to historical events if it's a community building. And then I said nothing cliche. I just find that ChatGPT is not the most creative thing in the world, and that's why it's useful to help you with your own ideas. Now, I already gave it the list of buildings and everything that I had, so this should do a pretty good job remembering and naming things. Okay, so the housing, Hearthstone Row, I don't care so much about that, although we could definitely go into that. Hearthstone Row, neighborhood name for the warm communal hearths that symbolize family and community. Okay, whatever. Community Hall, Founders Forum, a tribute to the town's founders were important. Actually, you know what? I kind of like that. The Founders Forum would be inside the community hall, though. So we'll just go with that for a minute. Storage, the cash keep. Okay, this I don't think that needed it. I should have been more specific, I think. With the inn, the Silver Serpent Inn. Okay, cool. Why not? Named after the Silver Lake River, offering a cozy retreat for travelers. All right. We'll go over to Inkarnate, and we're going to change the name of our inn to the Silver Serpent Inn. Why not? That might evoke... Actually, you know what? I don't want that. I want it to evoke something different. I don't love that name. We're going to go to something else. Okay. Let's just see if anything else is good. They might not be. Blacksmith. Ironclad Forge. Okay. None of this has anything to do with the area. And maybe I could be more specific. Farm. Barley and wheat. Golden Sheaf Acres. Now, if I remember, sheaf is like... Okay, that's not what I thought it was. I thought it was like husk and tied together for reaping. Golden Sheaf Acres. That I like that one. I'll actually go with that. It's going to be the Golden Sheaf Acres. Perfect. That actually looks like it belongs. Okay. So we'll go back to ChatGPT. Lumber Mill. Whisperwood Mill. Okay, that actually could be okay. But let's see. Market is Chakram Exchange. That sounds like... I don't know. It kind of sounds like what do you call it? Like the stock exchange. Okay. But the market is going to be the Chakram Exchange. Or let's just call it the Chakram Market. I just don't think that needs to be... I don't think that ChatGPT did a great job on this. But that's okay. It's done a lot for me. Stables. Fleetfoot Stables. That's not terrible. Mine Deep Vein Quarry, reflecting the depth and richness of the resources extracted from the mine. Okay, I kind of like that. The Deep Vein Quarry. Okay, we'll go back to Inkarnate. We're going to change mine to Deep Vein Quarry. And we're going to reduce the size just a tad. Ominous Tower. Gloomspire. That's so cheesy. I told it not to be cliche. Epic fail. All right, let's do it a little bit slower, I guess. At this point, I'm starting to get a little bit into what I want to do in the next episode with NPCs, but I am going to kind of do a few of these fairly quickly. I didn't like what happened before, so we're going to go into this. Here's a different type of prompt. This one will work really well. For each building that I prompt you with, I'd like the following information. 5 possible names for the building, because like I said, I hated them all. Description of the building that could be read to my players, short but evocative. Now this is something good for your notes. And cost of any goods or services that they provide. So this should cover everything from the stables to the market. And let's see. All right, so let's start with the stables. So this did give me everything I asked. I still don't love any of the names, but I think that's more just like something that you got to work through personally, because names are going to mean different things to different people. I'm just going to pick Swiftwind Stable so I can move past this. But the description, let's see if this is any good. The stables stand just outside the bustling market square, which is not true, but it doesn't have a layout yet. So that's something that we could also give to ChatGPT, or we could just change the wording there. That's probably what I would do, just so it doesn't have to be so perfect, I guess. A sturdy building constructed from the finest local timber. Its roof peaked high to allow for ample ventilation. See, this is too much. I don't love this. When I describe a building, like if I were going to describe this just kind of off what this looks like, I would actually probably start at the next sentence. I'd say something like, stables are... You walk up to the stables and you see it's mostly made out of lumber. You suspect probably from the local lumber mill. The scent of hay and leather is floating around in the air, although you're also getting some of the other less interesting things from a horse or something like that. And the soft nickering of horses can be heard from within. I would probably change this around a little bit, but this is a good place to start, and you could certainly work with this. Okay. Or just read it verbatim. It doesn't matter. This is the part that I really wanted, was basic stabling, 5 silver pieces per day, includes feed, water, and a clean stall. Premium stabling, 1 gold piece per day, includes feed, water, grooming, and exercise. Horse rental, 5 gold pieces per day. That's expensive. Well-trained horses available for short-term rental. Tack and equipment sales, prices vary. Saddles, bridles, blah, 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 blah. Horse training, 10 gold pieces per session. Professional training sessions for both horses and riders. I'd like to have them change the prices. I think these prices are too high. Consider that my players would be around level 3. Okay, this is just an expectations thing, and if I was making my whole world, I would have an economy that makes sense, and I could more easily come up with this stuff. Okay, so 5 copper pieces a day, which now feels too cheap, but that's fine. 1 silver piece per day for premium stabling, 2 silver pieces for horse rental. I'm going to try giving it a price of what I think is fair. So I said 2 gold per day to rent the horse, and hopefully it makes everything else kind of go off of that. So stabling 2 pieces a day, 5 silver pieces a day for premium, 2 gold for rental. Prices vary for tack and equipment. Horse training is 1 gold piece per session. Okay, cool. I think this is much better. Okay, so now we've got our Swiftwind stables. We have a price around some of the items that they're going to be selling, as well as some of the rentals that we're going to be doing. All right, so this is Swiftwind stables. It's as good as anything else. If I really wanted a theme, I would do it. All right, so next up is going to be the smithy. So I'm doing the smithy now, and I'm hopeful that the smithy is going to take into account some of the local area. The fact that I am mining, I have gems, and I have crustaceans that, what are they? The iron crabs, iron claw crabs, something like that. Okay, so we have the ironclad forge, hammer and anvil, forge fire smithy, steel hearth forge, and ember strike smithy. I'm going to go with ember strike smithy. I kind of like that. So we'll go back to Inkarnate. We're going to change the name to Ember Strike Smithy. Going forward, I'm going to do all of these name changes in the background so you don't have to see them. It's only so much that you need to watch me do, right? So the description is, I'm going to tell it after this one that I want the descriptions to be smaller so that it will take care of that going forward. The blacksmith shop, known as Ember Strike Smithy, is a cornerstone of the town situated near the market square. See, this is telling me about it. It's not giving me a description of it, of like visual description. Okay. Basic weapon repair, probably not useful. Basic armor repair, meh. Custom weapon, okay, all of this is wrong. And that's okay. I haven't given this enough information, and you saw I did a whole video on like setting up the prices and the items in your shop. So let's try this again. But first I'm going to take care of that description thing. Going forward, can you change the descriptions to be more visual descriptions? They should be no more than 2 sentences. It should paint a picture for the players. Maybe a little cheesy, but hopefully that gets the point across. I want to name the smithy Ember Strike Smithy. What weapons, armor, and other miscellaneous crafted items would the Ember Strike Smithy have for sale? I don't really care about repairing my weapons and armor because it's just not really a thing in D&D so much, and maybe other games have that. I'm sure they do. But in this case, let's see. Prices here are accurate to what D&D will tell you. So a longsword being 15 gold pieces, battle axe 10, etc., etc. So at least it used official material to figure out the prices, which can't really argue with. It just struck me as crazy to have a longsword be 15 gold pieces. Okay. The armor, leather armor, chain shirt, breastplate, shield, plate armor, all of these, I remember plate armor being about that much, so that all seems right. They have iron pots, metal buckets, nails, horseshoes, fishing hooks, and lantern frame. All of those make a lot of sense for the area that they're going to be in. You know, fishing hooks for sure. One thing that we didn't put into the town was a general store of sorts. And I think we should probably do that as well. All right, so I just added the general store here. We'll figure out what it's going to be named later. For the sake of brevity, I'm going to go through, I'm going to do a bunch more of these buildings, and then I'm going to recap here right before I end the episode. So I'll meet you back here in just a minute. Well, it's a little while later. This takes a lot of time. But a lot less time than it would take otherwise. So something that I did here is I wrote, after I worked to define all of the different locations, and I mean, frankly speaking, I've done videos on a lot of how to create some of these places, like a magical tavern or magical item store, a tavern, I don't know, other places like that too, probably like an inn. Maybe I haven't done an inn. Maybe I should do an inn. Anyway, so I did a few of these, and then I said, could you make me a quick synopsis of all the buildings that I haven't defined yet? Now, these are things like the community hall, which should probably take some time to define. I didn't, because I think I'd rather do that when I'm defining some of the NPCs. You know, I think it'd make more sense to talk about the governance as well as where they meet. Then the storage, which really doesn't need a whole lot of description, but it does have a visual description. Wells, lumber mill, mine. The mine's going to need a whole lot of description, but that could just as easily be just something outside of the town that you deal with separately as you make a dungeon for it or something like that. And then the ominous tower, which I want to get to later. Now, this is something that was good. I asked it to show me a quick description of all of the buildings that I had to find. Now, I did a bunch of these while I was on that little break. The Ember Strike Smithy, I have all of the different weapons, armor, as well as miscellaneous items that are for sale. I named the general store Stock and Barrel. I liked that. And it has a description as well as things for sale. Now, typically a general store is not going to have something like a moon-touched sword for sale. But I did this in my previous campaign, and it was actually literally a moon-touched sword, and I loved the way it kind of played out, because I had a rogue in the party, right? When I started describing a magical sword that was totally out of the realm of everything else in the store, I practically heard him just like, oh, you know, he was drooling. And in this case, I liked the visual of having the moon-touched sword in the front window of the general store to try to lure in any sort of people who are passing by to be like, what is this store? And then you go in there and there you go. Now, a general store is going to mostly be used for the people in the town. It's going to have things that they just need. But if you look here, I mean, there's rope, there's water, there's healing potions, oil, lanterns. There's things that adventurers would need too. Okay, then Golden Sheaf Acres. This is a description, but also some of the things that they sell, which most likely you wouldn't care about. It's not like you're going to buy a bushel of barley, but who knows? Maybe you could. The Silver Serpent Inn, this is going to be the general inn. This is where people are going to eat as well as sleep. So I had them, I created a menu for lunch, dinner. I created 3 different beers, wines, and whiskeys, and all 3 of these have, or I guess all 9 of these have a description as to what it would be, so you could read it out loud to your players, like, you know, the baked golden scale carp. Actually, let's just go look at what we had for that. So it's a succulent golden scale carp baked with garlic, lemon, and a blend of forest herbs, served with roasted root vegetables and a side of barley pilaf. Obviously, you don't have to say all of that, but if you were to hand your players a menu, that would be super cool, and you don't have to think through what that is. And of course, because I'm Dungeons and Drams, I had to do whiskeys, which I like. Chakram single malt. That's pretty good. For those of you that don't know, a single malt is something that's made at like a single distillery over a single season from a single, like, basically harvest. So the idea of having a farm that makes barley and then you could just take that and make whiskey, like, that actually fits to be a single malt. There's other rules too, so don't get at me in the comments. I know what I'm talking about. All right, rooms available. There's 10 different rooms. 6 of them are common and 4 of them are private, and that pretty much is all of those buildings. Now, I didn't put in any seriously like unique buildings, anything like magical, whatever, but this is a starter town. I'm not making like a wizarding school. I wouldn't be opposed to doing an herbalist in here or even a magic shop. I just don't know that a magic shop makes a whole lot of sense in a small town like this, or yeah, like a medium town. Maybe it would. I wouldn't be opposed to doing it. I also changed the map quite a bit. Let me zoom out for a minute here. I added a ton more trees over here just because I thought it made sense for a lumber mill. I also cut some down and kind of made it look like it's in process of being cut. I changed all of the labels to stick out quite a bit more. Added a forge here just for fun, so that maybe you're gonna, get rid of all the. You're gonna separate your ore from all the rest of the junk. I made a forest down here because I thought, hey, what's more magical than a path leading into a forest? And also, I kind of explored the concept of this dark tower with the corrupted land that I've mentioned. And I killed off some of the trees around it, so that's something that will very much stick out to people and be like, what the heck is that? All of this, it was, I did this in like an hour and a half or so, and pretty cool. There's plenty more I can do here, and in fact, we're going to get into NPC generation for the next video. We're going to utilize the same prompt that I promoted forever ago, one of my first videos, and we're going to utilize that to help give this town a little bit more life than what it currently feels like, because right now it's kind of a shell, right? There's nothing overly special about this other than it's a place that you could use if you wanted to. So we're going to go into NPCs. We're going to go into history, probably in that NPC episode. And then the last episode on this series is going to be coming up with quests that make sense for this area. Now, one of the things that one of the things that Lonely Person suggested was doing some sort of an underground dungeon that would be part of this town. So something that's physically below you that would be a secret. And I don't know, like, unless I'm going to turn this town into just like at nighttime everybody turns into some sort of monster, I don't know that I want to do that because I just don't think it fits the motif. But it's still a cool idea. I mean, having maybe the quarry here ends up digging a little too deep and things burst out of the ground inside of this town. Like, that's totally a thing. You could use what are they called? Ankegs. That would be a cool concept. So I know this is a long video. This whole series is going to be kind of long. I thought about doing them as live streams, but I actually thought this would be a little bit tighter, believe it or not. I have no idea how long this video is going to be, but it's probably pretty long. So join me here again. I want to put these out every week, but they tend to be about every 2 weeks, just with the length and the editing and whatever. So join me when the next one comes out and we'll talk about NPCs. That will be a very good episode because I think we're going to really give this thing life. So I will see you in a couple of weeks for Dungeons and Drams, and welcome back to, what is it? I keep forgetting the name. It's like, I'm going to come up with a different name, Shockram. It just doesn't have a ring to it. Anyway, so join me here in a couple of weeks and we'll come up with a new name. So give me a name in the comments if you like something else. All right. Cheers, everybody.